Okay, so let's dig into this. We're looking at Rukchanok Srinork, or ICE, and her political journey. It's just incredibly fast-paced, isn't it? Almost unprecedented.
It really is. I mean, you're talking about someone moving from being, a student athlete running an online shop.
Yeah, stationery, gift shops, that kind of thing.
Exactly. To then becoming this viral political figure, taking down a massive political dynasty that had been entrenched for decades.
And doing all that while, let's not forget, facing the constant, very real threat of a 6-year prison sentence, non-probated.
Right.
That hangs over everything.
Absolutely. And that's why this deep dive is so important, I think. We need to structure her story.
Yeah.
Because she really does represent something new in Thai politics.
Like what specifically?
Well, this blend of social media mastery, almost celebrity status from platforms like Clubhouse, translating directly into grassroots political power, but then, boom, immediately hitting the wall of Thailand's established legal and political systems. Hard.
Right. So our mission today is to really unpack that, go beyond the headlines, structure her whole biography. We've got a pretty hefty stack of sources here, profiles, detailed accounts of her activism, the legal stuff.
Especially that Article 112 case, the Lèse-majesté charge. That's crucial.
Definitely. And also these major public spats, the controversies that have really defined her public image.
And why this matters for you, listening, is that ICE's story gives you this incredibly concentrated look at how modern Thai politics works. Or maybe how it clashes.
You mean the digital activism versus the old guard?
Yeah, exactly. You see that intersection of digital fame, the whole Clubhouse celebrity moment, and then the really severe legal tools that critics of the establishment can face. It's intense. Her political work and her personal legal fight are basically the same thing now.
Okay. So let's start at the beginning then. Her roots. Where did she come from, and what set her on this, well, unexpected path?
Right, so Rukchanok Srinork was born in Bangkok, October 11th, 1994. That puts her right in that generation that grew up alongside, significant political upheaval in Thailand.
And the sources really emphasize her background, don't they? Not elite at all.
Not at all. Decidedly working class. She grew up in Bangkok, which is an area of Bangkok quite different socioeconomically from the, let's say, traditional corridors of power and wealth.
And that's important because
the sources keep pointing back to it. It wasn't just abstract poverty or inequality for her. It was the environment she lived in. It directly shaped her understanding of local problems, economic struggles, community needs, stuff that later became central to her local campaigning.
Okay, so a very grounded perspective from the start.
Definitely. And you see that reflected in her education path, too. Eventually, she graduated from Thammasat University in 2016, Bachelor of Science in Statistics, a good degree from a major university.
But it wasn't a straight line to get there, was it? There was some hardship.
Yeah, the sources mention a period where things were tough financially for her family. She actually attended Teng Trong Chit Commercial College for a bit.
And that was driven by need, right? Not an academic choice.
Exactly. Pure economic necessity. The family was struggling, so she had to pivot to vocational studies for a while, working at the same time she was trying to study.
That kind of experience, working while studying because you have to, that gives you a different lens on things compared to someone who just reads about inequality in a report.
Absolutely. It grounds your understanding of structural problems in a very real way. It's not theoretical. It's about making ends meet, navigating the system day to day. That hustle, that reality, you can see it later in her political approach.
Which makes her ideological starting point almost shocking when you read about it.
Right. Because she didn't just gradually become politically aware. She apparently did a complete 180. The sources describe her initial stance as, well, an extreme royalist.
Extreme, like actively defending the establishment.
Yeah, fiercely committed, actively rejecting criticism or opposing views. You have to picture that starting point, a young person, deeply conservative, defending the status quo, to really appreciate the transformation that happened later.
So what flipped the switch? The sources must point to something specific. It couldn't have been just one conversation.
No, it seems like it was a process, multifaceted.
Yeah.
A big part was apparently just engaging in these long, challenging discussions with friends who saw things differently. That forced her to confront maybe some inconsistencies in her own views.
Okay, so peer influence, challenging discussions.
But maybe the biggest catalyst, according to the sources, was travel. Seeing how things worked, quality of life, government efficiency, in other countries.
Ah, the comparison effect, holding up a mirror.
Exactly. When she saw how other places dealt with structural issues, things like bureaucracy, corruption, social safety nets, It seems she started to realize that Thailand's problems weren't necessarily inevitable or just down to individuals. They were systemic, structural.
And that realization pushed her towards advocacy.
That seems to be the core of it. A shift from defending the existing system to actively wanting to critique and change its fundamental structure. A pretty profound cognitive leap.
Before she went full-time into politics and activism, though, she had some other interesting experiences. Things that maybe hinted at her later skills, like sports.
Yeah, she was apparently quite a serious athlete, a competitive basketball player for Thammasat University.
Not just a casual thing, then.
No, requires discipline, teamwork, that competitive edge.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, she still trains and plays with the alumni team. The sources also mentioned she loves diving, so maybe drawn to activities requiring focus and dealing with pressure.
Interesting. And professionally, she wasn't just waiting for politics. She was already doing her own thing online.
Right, tapping into the digital economy early. Before activism took over, she'd worked in some private companies, but she was pretty well known for running her own online business, selling stationery, gifts, that sort of thing.
So comfortable with e-commerce, digital platforms, direct engagement with customers, skills that probably came in handy later.
You'd have to think so. That entrepreneurial experience, understanding online engagement, it feels like a precursor to her digital campaigning style.
And she even had a little taste of the political machine itself, didn't she? Before running.
Yeah, that's an interesting detail.
Yeah.
She served as an advisor to a parliamentary committee, the one on political development, mass communications, and public participation.
So she got a peek behind the curtain, saw how the legislative sausage gets made.
Must have. Gave her some insider knowledge of parliamentary mechanics, which would obviously be useful later. And kind of fittingly, at the same time, she was also doing political satire.
Oh, yeah, the parody show.
Safajoke, the parliamentary joke show.
Yeah.
She played a parody version of former Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra.
Wow. So policy advisor and political satirist, that's quite the combination.
It really encapsulates her profile, doesn't it? Policy-aware, digitally savvy, comfortable with performance, and not afraid to be provocative.
And that mix of skills, that energy, it really came to the fore around 2020, 2021, when the youth-led protest movements were gaining serious momentum. She wasn't just showing up.
No, she was deeply involved and in very practical ways. She was at multiple demonstrations, yes, but the sources often mention her role as a volunteer nurse during the rally.
When you're a nurse, so literally on the front lines, dealing with injuries, tear gas effects.
Exactly. That kind of hands-on role, sharing the physical risks, really builds credibility within a movement. It shows dedication beyond just making speeches. She's an advocate and a caregiver on the ground.
And her activism wasn't just street-level protest, right? She was also looking at legislative change.
Yeah, that dual track is important. The sources mention her working with a group called the Drawn Porn Team. Their specific goal was to petition the House Speaker to amend Article 287 of the Criminal Code,
Which deals with
obscenity and pornography laws. So it shows a strategic thinking, linking the energy of the streets to specific institutional reform targets, not just protests for protest's sake.
But the thing that really catapulted her into the national spotlight, the thing that made ICE a household name for many, was Clubhouse. We need to talk about that platform's significance back then.
Oh, absolutely. Clubhouse had this moment, didn't it? Especially during the pandemic lockdowns. It became this vital, kind of unfiltered space for political discussion in Thailand.
Why Clubhouse specifically?
It was audio only, live, interactive in a way that, say, X or Facebook wasn't quite. It felt more immediate, less scripted. And in that environment, ICE just exploded. She became a genuine Clubhouse celebrity.
How did she do it? What was the hook?
Political satire, basically. She opened this room with a brilliantly provocative title, "We Will Sincerely Praise the Government."
Which was, of course, the exact opposite of what the room was about.
Precisely. The irony was the weapon. It became this incredibly popular, dedicated space for really sharp, organized criticism of the government's performance, all packaged under this sarcastic banner of praise. It was witty, a bit edgy, and it tapped into a widespread frustration. People loved the subversive humor.
And being a star on Clubhouse at that moment meant you were suddenly interacting with some very big names, right?
Definitely. The platform cut across hierarchies in a weird way. And her fame really hit escape velocity after she got into this high-profile discussion, exchanging views directly with Tony Woodson.
And Tony Woodson, just to remind everyone, is the widely known pseudonym used by former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra while he was in self-exile.
Right. So imagine the scene. This young, working-class activist known for her sharp tongue and satire, going back and forth with one of the most powerful and polarizing figures in modern Thai history.
What did that interaction signify politically?
It instantly elevated her status. It legitimized her as a voice that mattered on the national stage. She wasn't just some random activist anymore. She was someone whose opinions were being engaged with, debated by the political heavyweight class, even those in exile. It gave her massive visibility.
But that visibility, that activist role, it also pulled her into some really nasty public conflicts, like the dispute with the film director Tom Yithalerd in 2021. That got physical, allegedly.
Yeah, that was messy and blew up in the media immediately. The core of it, according to the sources detailing ICE's side, was an incident during a private meeting, apparently on a boat rooftop. She publicly alleged that Tom Yithalerd physically assaulted her.
Specifically how?
She claimed he slapped her twice and kicked her in the stomach. She framed the conflict as political, saying it stemmed from him previously making some unsubstantiated claims about protest movement funds, and she was confronting him, trying to pressure him to apologize to other activists he'd apparently targeted, like Amy the Bottom Blues and Saichiro and Pura.
Okay, so that's her narrative. But it wasn't uncontested, was it? The sources show a quick counter-narrative emerging.
No, not at all. The coverage got very polarized very quickly, reflecting the usual political fall lines. Tom Yithalerd fired back almost instantly. He denied her specific account of the violence.
What was his version?
He framed it more as a heated argument, maybe a scuffle or a brawl, but not the one-sided assault she described. He strongly implied, or outright stated, that she was the aggressor in initiating the confrontation, accusing her of pressuring him about these apologies.
So two completely different stories playing out very publicly. Where did it end up legally? Did she press charges for assault?
It actually went the other way. Tom Yithalerd countersued her for defamation, basically, contempt for damaging his reputation with her public accusations.
And the court ruled.
The court eventually found Rukchanok guilty of defamation. However, the penalty was significantly reduced because she confessed or acknowledged wrongdoing in some way. It ended up being just a small fine, about 2,500 baht.
That seems quite light for a defamation conviction.
Financially, yes. But the really interesting part of the judgment, the sources highlight, was the non-financial penalty. The court ordered her to perform a sincere way of the traditional Thai bow of respect and apology to Tom Yithalerd.
A court-mandated public apology gesture.
Exactly. It underscored the very personal nature of the dispute and its resolution. It was less about punishment and more about a kind of formal public reconciliation or acknowledgement of fault, even with the minimal fine. Very symbolic.
Okay, so she navigates that controversy. She's built this huge profile through Clubhouse and activism. The next logical step seems to be electoral politics. And she makes that leap in the 2023 general election.
Right. Running under the banner of the Move Forward Party, which, we should remind listeners, was later dissolved by the Constitutional Court in August 2024, with its MPs regrouping under the new name, the People's Party. But at the time of the election, it was Move Forward.
And the place she chose to run her constituency, that was a statement in itself, wasn't it? Bangkok District 28.
Oh, absolutely. Choosing that district was key to understanding just how big her eventual win was. We're talking about an area covering Shamthong, Bainbon, her home turf, and Nongkham districts. And political analysts and all the sources we looked at consistently called this a red area.
Let's unpack that term, red area. In Bangkok politics, especially for a party like Move Forward, what did that signify?
It basically meant it was considered Pheu Party territory.
Right.
More than that, it was the fortress of the incredibly powerful Yubamrun family. They were tightly allied with Pheu, and that family dynasty had dominated local politics there for decades. It was their stronghold.
So for a relatively new party like Move Forward, known for its reformist agenda, targeting that specific seat, challenging the incumbent Wan Yubamrung, that was seen as a long shot.
A massive long shot, hugely ambitious. Some probably thought it was politically naive. It was the very definition of running uphill against deeply entrenched, localized power. The Yubamrung name carried immense weight there.
So how did she overcome that? Her campaign strategy had to be different. The sources paint it as pretty innovative, almost guerrilla style.
They really do. She completely sidestepped the traditional playbook. Big rallies, expensive billboards, motorcades. Her approach was pure grassroots, very localized, and I had this, eco-conscious vibe.
The bicycle, right. That became iconic.
Exactly. Her main way of getting around the district, meeting voters, was just riding her bicycle. The image itself was incredibly powerful. It streamed humility, accessibility, a rejection of the perceived excesses of established politicians. Plus, good for the environment. It cut through.
It's great optics. But it wasn't just the bike, was it? There was that thing with the policy
Yeah,
papers.
that was brilliant. Instead of just handing out boring flyers that people might glance at and toss away, she took the party's official policy papers.
The actual platform documents.
Yeah, and she fashioned them into garlands, like flower garlands, Fwang Malai, and she would actually place these policy garlands around voters' necks.
Wow, that's making policy tangible and
Yeah,
personal.
totally. It transformed dry policy points into this act of cultural exchange, a gesture of respect. It made the party platform memorable, physically present. It signaled direct investment in the voter, a stark contrast to just shouting slogans from a stage. It was tactile, viral campaigning without needing a huge media budget,
Yeah.
just pure, clever engagement.
And the result, it wasn't just a win, it was seismic.
Monumental is the word. She didn't just squeak by, she won with overwhelming numbers. She defeated Wan Yubamrung, the powerful incumbent from the dynasty that had held the seat forever. It was a genuine political earthquake.
And that victory earned her that nickname, didn't it? The one that stuck.
Yes, she became known as the MP who had lost the elephant. The Lhasa Thai.
Lost the elephant. That phrase carries a lot of weight in Thai culture, right? What does it signify in this political context?
It signifies bringing down something huge, powerful, seemingly immovable.
Hmm.
The elephant represents that entrenched political machinery, the dynasty, the establishment power. To lose it means achieving this incredible, almost unbelievable upset against overwhelming odds. It signaled more than just a party victory. It felt like a shift in the electorate's willingness, even in traditional strongholds, to bet on new, reformist voices.
So after achieving this symbolic, massive win, what was her message? Did she acknowledge the scale of it, the expectations?
She did. Publicly, she thanked her supporters massively, acknowledging the scale of what they'd achieved together. But she was also realistic. She vowed to be a worthy representative, not to disappoint them, but she also signaled that she knew the path ahead in Parliament would be tough. She basically anticipated intense scrutiny, knowing the powers she'd challenged would be watching her every move.
And that intense scrutiny, it started pretty much instantly, like day one in Parliament, the whole seating posture drama.
Yeah, it sounds almost trivial now, but it became this huge flashpoint. It perfectly illustrated that clash between the new, maybe more informal energy she represented and the very traditional hierarchical expectations of the Thai parliament.
What actually happened?
A photo started circulating online. It showed her sitting in the chamber, apparently reading some documents, but she had one knee up on the seat, kind of leaning back, looking relaxed, maybe too relaxed for some.
And the traditionalists pounced.
Immediately, critics seized on it, shared it widely, framed it as disrespectful, lacking decorum, an insult to the sanctity of the institution. You know, the kind of arguments.
How did she respond? Because her defense was quite procedural, wasn't it?
It was very much in character. She clarified what she was doing reading parliamentary regulations, ironically enough. And she publicly stated she'd actually checked the rule book and found no specific rule prohibiting that posture.
So, show me the rule.
Pretty much. And she made the practical point that, hey, these parliamentary sessions go on for hours, people get tired, you shift around to stay comfortable while doing your job. It was a pragmatic defense.
But the reaction went beyond just criticism of her posture, didn't it? It got darker.
It did, frighteningly quickly. It shows just how volatile things were. The sources detailed that this seemingly minor incident led to her receiving a direct death threat via chat message. Something like, if you still love your life, delete the post immediately.
Wow, from arguing about how someone sits to death threats, that's a chilling escalation.
Absolutely. It instantly shifted the stakes from a debate about parliamentary etiquette to a matter of personal safety.
Did her main political opponent, the one she just defeated, weigh in, Wan Yubamrung?
He did, actually. He publicly distanced himself and his family from the threat, stating they had nothing to do with it, and warning her against making broad, unsubstantiated accusations against political rivals.
So the threat remained anonymous, but the danger felt real.
Very real. And it highlights the intense pressure and surveillance she was under from the get-go. Even though there was no rule broken, the backlash was so severe that eventually she did issue an apology and promised to adjust her conduct in Parliament. It felt like a forced concession to the pressure.
Okay, let's shift from parliamentary conduct to the legal issue that truly defines her situation now. The Article 112 conviction in December 2023. This is the core of that existential threat we talked about.
This is absolutely central. She was found guilty by the criminal court of violating Article 112 of the Criminal Code, the Lèse-majesté law, and also the Computer Crimes Act.
And this stemmed from
from actions taken way back in 2020. Specifically, two things she posted or shared on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. The post contained commentary deemed critical of the monarchy.
Now, Article 112, for listeners who might not be fully aware, just how serious is this law in Thailand and why is it so politically charged?
It's incredibly serious. It carries very harsh penalties, potentially long prison sentences for any act deemed defamatory, insulting, or threatening towards the king, queen, heir apparent, or regent. And historically, critics argue it's often been used politically to silence dissent, especially targeting activists and opposition figures.
And the court found her guilty on 2 counts related to her Twitter activity. How does that work? Can one share be a separate crime from an original post?
Yes, that's a crucial aspect. The legal interpretation often treats each distinct act of publication like writing an original post and then also retweeting or sharing something similar, even if it's related content, as separate offenses under the law. This allows courts to stack charges and multiply the potential sentences.
Which leads to the sentence she received: 6 years. And crucially, without probation.
That without probation part is the hammer blow. It means the court determined the sentence should be served immediately upon final conviction. It's not suspended. She got 3 years for each count, totaling 6 years. It signals extreme severity from the judiciary regarding her actions under this law.
Okay, so here's the question that puzzles many. How can a sitting MP, convicted and sentenced to 6 years with no probation, still be walking around, attending Parliament, doing her job?
It comes down to the appeals process. Thai law allows for appeals. On the very same day she was convicted and sentenced by the criminal court, the appeals court granted her temporary release on bail.
So bail is the key.
Bail is everything right now. It allows her to remain free and, critically, to retain her status as a member of parliament while she appeals the conviction through the higher courts. The conviction isn't final until the Supreme Court potentially rules on it.
What were the conditions for that bail? Was it straightforward?
Not entirely. The financial security required was substantial 500,000 baht. But what's really significant politically is how that security was posted. It was partially guaranteed using the parliamentary status of Thaiduat Tulatan, who was then the leader of the Move Forward Party, now People's Party.
So the party leader put his own MP status on the line as collateral.
Effectively, yes. It shows a huge institutional commitment from the party to her defense. But it also massively raises the political stakes if she were ever deemed to have violated her bail conditions. The party leadership itself is directly tied into her compliance.
So she remains an MP, she can work, but she's essentially walking a tightrope legally.
An incredibly fine tightrope. Because the conviction isn't final, she keeps her seat. But every public statement, every political action is now potentially under scrutiny related to those bail conditions. It must create an immense chilling effect on what she feels she can say or do.
And we saw evidence of that scrutiny just recently, late in 2024, right? There was an attempt to revoke her bail.
Exactly. Complaints were filed with the criminal court, arguing that some of her political posts and activities, since being released on bail, actually violated the conditions set by the court. They wanted her bail revoked, which would mean immediate imprisonment.
Oh, was the outcome?
The court ultimately decided not to revoke her bail. They ruled that her actions, while perhaps controversial, hadn't technically crossed the specific lines laid out in the bail agreement.
But it wasn't a complete green light either.
Not at all. The court issued a very strong, very public warning alongside the ruling, basically telling her she needs to be extremely careful and strictly adhere to all conditions going forward. It serves as a constant reminder of the precariousness of her freedom and her political career. She's simultaneously fighting for her political agenda and her personal liberty every single day.
Okay, so if the Article 112 case represents that heavy institutional state-level pressure she's under, there's another major thread of conflict running through her recent career. This one feels more rooted in the messy world of social media, activism, and public figures. I'm talking about her clashes with Gun Jompalang.
Right. And this isn't just one argument. The sources point to 2 distinct major feuds between them. They really highlight the dramatic, often personal, and highly public nature of disputes within Thailand's activist and social media landscape, and how these things can morph over time.
Let's take them chronologically. Feud number 1 kicked off when? And what was it about?
This first big public clash flared up in August 2026. And it started with something incredibly sensitive, a claim of domestic violence made by ICE herself.
What did she allege?
She posted on her social media alleging she'd been severely physically abused by the man who was her boyfriend at the time. The specific claim mentioned being kicked in the face and head. Really serious allegations.
And Gun Jompalang, who's built this public persona as a sort of social justice crusader helping victims, he got involved.
Initially, yes, and publicly so. He announced he was stepping in to help her, positioning himself as an advocate supporting a victim of domestic violence, offering assistance, advice.
Okay, seems straightforward so far. Activist helps activist. But then,
But then it took this incredibly sharp public U-turn. Just a short time after offering help, Gun Jompalang called his own press conference. And at that press conference, he stunned everyone by accusing Rukchanok of essentially making the whole thing up.
making it up. He accused her of fabricating the domestic violence claim.
Yes. He used phrases like fabricating, staging, or playing a drama. He claimed he had evidence that contradicted her story.
What kind of evidence did he claim to have? This is an extraordinary accusation to make against someone who just publicly claimed to be a victim of severe assault.
He specifically mentioned having obtained alleged CCTV footage. He asserted that this footage didn't support her claims of the kind of severe, unprovoked attack she'd described. His narrative shifted completely. He started criticizing her for potentially wasting public sympathy and resources that should go to genuine victims.
Wow. So he weaponized his social justice platform against her, using her own personal trauma claim as the basis.
That's certainly how it looks from her perspective, and to many observers. He went from ally to primary accuser almost overnight on an incredibly personal and damaging issue. The sources describe the situation immediately becoming this two sides of the same coin scenario.
Meaning?
Meaning it devolved into a bitter public dispute with conflicting narratives, and it quickly led to mutual defamation lawsuits between them. It sparked this huge public debate. Who was telling the truth? Was she a victim being unfairly attacked, or was Gun Jompalang exposing a fabrication? This first feud really poisoned the well between them and set a pattern of public conflict and legal battles.
Okay, so that was feud number one, deeply personal, highly dramatic. Then fast forward a couple of years to October 2025. The dynamic shifts again, right? This time it's political.
Exactly. This is feud number two, and the context is different. Now, Rukchanok is a sitting member of parliament, and she uses that platform, that authority, to publicly question Gun Jompalang's integrity, but this time on political grounds.
What was her specific angle?
She zeroed in on his very public, very close relationship with a powerful government politician, Captain Thamanot Prompao. Her core accusation was political, that this closeness blurred the lines. Was Gun Jompalang truly a neutral social activist, or was he operating too close to political power, perhaps even benefiting from it or serving its interests?
Did she have anything concrete to back that up beyond just observing their closeness?
She did. This was the crucial difference in the second feud. She produced what many saw as a smoking gun. She revealed details from the official regulations of Gun Jompalang's own foundation, the Gun Jompalang Foundation for Fighting.
And what did these regulations say?
They contain a specific clause, apparently outlining what happens if the foundation ever dissolves, and that clause stipulated that any remaining residual assets would be transferred directly to another foundation, the Thamanot Prompao Foundation.
Oof. That's a very direct financial linkage outlined in their own founding documents. That's politically damaging for someone claiming nonpartisanship.
Extremely damaging. It suggests, at minimum, a very deep structural connection and trust between Gun Jompalang's operation and the political machinery around Thamanot. For ICE, this was proof. It demonstrated, she argued, that his social work wasn't entirely separate from political interests, whether it was about funding, influence, or future security. It shifted the debate squarely onto political ethics and transparency.
How did Gun Jompalang respond to that revelation? He couldn't really deny the clause existed in his own foundation's rules.
He couldn't deny the clause, no. He admitted he was close to Thamanot, but he tried to frame it purely around shared interests in social work and helping people. He absolutely denied receiving political funding from Thamanot or acting as his political pawn. He kept insisting, "I do not interfere with politics."
Did he address the potential conflict of interest?
Less directly. His defense also included highlighting the damage Rukchanok's accusations were causing him. He claimed her campaign against his integrity had cost him significantly, citing over 600,000 baht in lost income from canceled appearances and engagements due to the controversy she stirred up.
So, trying to flip the narrative back onto her hurting his ability to do good work. And did this feud also play out publicly?
Oh, spectacularly so. The climax was pure political theater.
Mm.
On October 24th, 2025, Gun Jompalang held another press conference, this time specifically to address these questions about his funding, the foundation link, his relationship with Thaminon.
And Rukchanok showed up.
She didn't just show up, she crashed it. She walked right in, confronted him in front of all the assembled media, microphone in hand, demanding answers. She directly accused him, asking why he had lied to the media about the true nature and extent of his relationship with Captain Thaminon.
Wow, direct confrontation at his own presser. That takes guts.
It was incredibly bold,
Yeah.
and it perfectly crystallized the dynamic of this second feud. A reformist MP, using her official platform and investigative findings to demand accountability from a high-profile social figure she accused of being entangled with powerful political interests.
So ultimately, the second feud really cemented her role as not just an activist, but a legislative watchdog, right? Using her MP status to push for transparency.
Absolutely. The conversation completely shifted away from the earlier personal drama. This was about political ethics, the influence of money and power on civil society, and the responsibilities of public figures. ICE successfully framed her actions as a necessary scrutiny of integrity, which is, arguably a core part of her job as an elected representative trying to push for systemic change. Hashtag, tag, outro.
So when you step back and look at the whole picture, Rukchanok Srinork's journey is it's packed with these intense contradictions and this relentless pressure.
Hmm.
We've traced her path from unbelievably an extreme royalist basketball player
Right, quite the starting point.
to becoming this really strategic political operator, a clubhouse star who then mastered grassroots campaigning on a bicycle. She pulled off that incredible feat losing the elephant, beating a dynasty in their own backyard.
A truly remarkable political achievement by any measure. But, as we've seen, that success is inseparable from the crushing legal reality that now defines her life.
Yeah, being a sitting member of parliament who is simultaneously fighting a 6-year, non-probated prison sentence under Article 112 just for 2 social media posts from years ago, it's mind-boggling.
She's literally performing her duties as an MP, while her personal freedom hangs by the thread of a bail agreement, with her party leader's status partially on the line. Every move, every word, potentially scrutinized not just by political opponents, but by the judicial system itself.
And her public life seems like this constant whirlwind. Political wins, yes, but also these aggressive public feuds, personal controversies, and the never-ending need for legal defense. Whether it's arguing about sitting posture in parliament or exposing foundation funding links, it's always high stakes, high visibility.
It really reflects the sheer intensity, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And the immense personal cost for politicians, especially younger reformist ones, trying to challenge deeply entrenched systems in Thailand today. It seems like there's no grace period. Success is met almost immediately with weaponized scrutiny. Constant legal battles just become part of the job description.
So thinking about her entire trajectory, that full 180 from conservative youth to a prominent reformist MP facing years in prison, yet still fighting, what does Rukchanok Srinork's ongoing struggle tell us? What does it tell us about the ultimate price and maybe the kind of, sheer bloody-minded determination required to even attempt structural change when the system itself seems so ready and willing to use every tool it has to push back?